Renee, I know you read an article yesterday about Cristopher Sanchez and his mechanics changes. And this kind of all ties in, again, with how likable this team is. Now, Rich Hoffman in his daily email alluded to the same thing. He was talking about the Eagles guys who are out in Indy at the Combine right now. Bo had a question to Howie yesterday that was basically like, how do you balance competing now with looking at the future, i.e., player development and letting young guys learn on the fly and play and all that? And it was a really good question. And as Rich points out, this, after his Eagles recap in his newsletter, he said, and this made me think about the Phillies because player development in baseball is so different. Modern teams are now looking for an edge. We've talked about the Phillies R&D department growing big time over the past couple of years. There was a Matt Gelb story the other day, which was pretty fascinating, about JT Realmuto working in their biomechanics lab in the offseason to fix a hole in his swing. They talk about Mick Abel now throwing the gyro slider to get a little more control. Nick Castellanos defensively, they made changes because they found out that he is better going to his left than his right. So they're constantly tweaking and trying things. And I know Cristopher Sanchez, the story you read, leads right into this, that this team is likable because they know they're close and they're all doing stuff, relying on the technology and the coaching staff. And they're really working at a lot in this spring training.
Yeah, and what I've been enjoying most as I read these different pieces is every day we're getting a piece on a different player, specifically what they've done in the offseason and how they've made tweaks. So there's, tweaks as we talk about Aaron Nola. Jeff Hoffman also had one as well. And for Cristopher Sanchez specifically, Matt Gelb starts the piece off talking about a conversation that was happening because it was all fun against the Twins, in that tied game. Yeah. That Cristopher Sanchez threw his first pitch 90 miles per hour down and in, and Carlos Correa swung through it because he wasn't expecting it. And Correa turned to Garrett Stubbs and said, "Is that a sinker?" And Stubbs was like, "Sure." He's like, it's just spring training. I'll tell you. He's like, "It's a cutter." And so then Correa was like, "Okay." But Cristopher Sanchez, we know, had been working on his mechanics even prior to last season. And this offseason was a major, major step for him. One, because he's locked in and knowing that he's going to be, that fifth starter. For him to even have that confidence, knowing, okay, I've got a job, I've got to prove it now, I've got to keep it. And having the ability to be, a starter in the league, that gave him the confidence. But then also, in addition to earning that, he's worked so much with Caleb Cotham on his delivery because this past offseason, he put on 10 pounds.
Beefy
he
boy.
Also started, he's throwing harder. His control was better. His overall movement was better. And he was focusing on, even though he wasn't throwing as fast as he used to, it's not those high 90s fastballs. He is averaging about 94 miles per hour with a sinker, with a 2 mile per hour improvement, from 2023.
Love it.
So the overall handle that he has for his pitch has been something that he's been working on. And Caleb Cotham was saying, hey, one of the biggest things about him is you don't really have to tell him as much anymore. Like he's getting it. He's got the belief. He's got the consistency. He's got the awakening. And I don't find myself having to kind of like tweak it as much. It's more about like just consistently delivering it. So, for Cristopher Sanchez to have that confidence and now to have the control along with the consistency, it's all the C's you want from Cristopher Sanchez. It makes it exciting because he's like, I gotta throw strikes, I gotta throw consistently, and he's definitely been improving on his game. So the velocity is there, the control is there, the consistency is there, which is exactly what you want from Cristopher Sanchez. In addition to 10 pounds.
He's one of the 3 or 4 guys that if they all get to like play at their kind of level that we expect them to, I don't think there's any doubt the Phillies can be as good on paper as anybody in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
And I think those guys are Johan Rojas. Brandon Marsh has to repeat it. Cristopher Sanchez is one of them. And the other is Orion. To me, those 4 guys all show a lot of promise and are the difference in elevating this team to the next level.
Exactly.
And I think the Phillies front office has told you that, they basically believe in these guys. And they're giving them the chance this year. So those 4 are in huge spots. Cristopher Sanchez, I'm a big Cristopher Sanchez guy.
Same.
Really looking forward to watching him this year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. The odds do say that one of these 5 pitchers is probably going to get hurt. Hopefully they can overcome it. And then that 6th starter spot becomes an interesting one. I saw Phillies Nation yesterday was doing their early roster predictions. And they think Spencer Turnbull is going to make it and steal that sixth starter job there. But big year for Cristopher Sanchez.
Yeah, and I will say I liked also the fact that in that piece, Caleb Cotham was talking specifically about how Cristopher Sanchez is even getting more vocal. He's talking to the catchers, he's talking to the guys, he's talking in bullpen sessions and giving them kind of the ideas of what he wants to do.